Well, speaking of reviews, even though we're losing some of the professional reviewers, or at least the subsidized by newspaper professional reviewers, there are a lot of book review services and sites out there, and they allow anybody to review a book. All right, so is the quality going to be quite as good as what you're going to get from someone whose job is just to to read reviews? Maybe, maybe not. Probably more initially on the maybe not side, but when you think in terms of marketing your book, this is really great. So there's a site called Goodreads.com. Has anybody not heard of Goodreads before? Okay, so I'll explain it a little bit, and we could even actually jump into it and look at it. It's one of a number of review services that have popped up in the last few years. Another one is Shelfari, and there's a third one that's really popular in Facebook that I can't remember the name of right now. Huh? Shelfari? Shelfari? Shelfari. And where you're probably going to notice them is if you use Facebook, and there are 600 million Facebook users, so probably a lot of you do. You may occasionally see an app that people have installed that shows what they're reading, and you kind of see their digital bookshelf. And it's basically a way of people socially sharing what they're reading, and it's book recommendations. And some of those, like this Goodreads service, then also have book reviews. So what's interesting is any book that's out there, whether it's self-published or coming through a traditional publishing house, it has a Goodreads profile, and then you can see the latest reviews that people have posted, what the aggregate star rating is. It's kind of like Yelp is for businesses, Goodreads is for books. And it's a growing service. So, I mean, one of the easiest things I think you can do to get the word out about your book is once it's published through any of these online services as an ebook, then most likely it'll be in Goodreads.com. You tell all your friends, and I don't know, maybe you'd tell your enemies because you want to know if you want to get like a quality review. But just anybody just tell them. It's like, hey, my book is on Goodreads. If you think it's any good, give it a rating and review it, and then that will show up in people's Facebook pages, and then they'll start. They'll at least be aware of your book. So, I think that's a good thing. Talk a little bit about marketing your book. How do you know that it's going to sell? What types of self-published books sell better than others? This is an ever-evolving area. And then some ideas about marketing. So with Book Brewer, fairly new service. We have, I think, close to 4,000 registered users now, around 1,000 who have published in some form or paid for some kind of service. And what we've noticed is that how-to content with a niche focus really seems to sell well. Or at least we see a lot of that content showing up. And those people tend to have, if you look at, point to Dave Taylor again, he's got AskDaveTaylor.com, and he has this whole archive of every computer question and answer that you could imagine, and he has them all categorized. So he's now creating ebook versions of those. So he took all of he pulled out all the posts about the iPad, and then turned those into the Ask Dave Taylor iPad Answer Guide. Right? We're seeing a lot of that kind of content. It's not just about technology. It's about the content. It's about the content. People are telling you, how. Especially how-to business books. We're seeing a ton of those, especially locally. You're the third author like that locally that I know of who has some kind of how-to. But then also, I'd say second to that, you've got personal stories by people who overcome some kind of major crisis. I've just noticed this trend. I mean, there's a lot of that content coming in, and one such book like this, it's called Hope. I actually posted it in our Twitter account. If you follow us on Twitter at Book Brewer, you can see it. It's not the best written book, just to be honest, and I'd say that the author would even, would agree, because he just wanted to get his story out there about how he came down with Cushing's disease and how it just upended his entire life. And his book is about how you should be hopeful in the face of these major life events like that. And he believes that that's why he's still alive with everything he has to deal with. That is the second best-selling book that we've published through Book Brewer. And it's not the best written, but it's the best story. So, I mean, that's a really good point. I think kind of going back to the question is that maybe we're entering an age where books are not necessarily all just about the writing. They're about the person, the individual. And what I do know is that if he could afford an editor, then he would pay somebody. But he's living in an assisted living facility in New Mexico. It warmed my heart that he basically said that for the past 3 years he hasn't earned any money. He's on some kind of public assistance. And this was the first time when we sent the royalty check to him that he had made any money. And he made like $180 that month. And now he actually, I wish I had it here, he published his book in print on demand, and he's then sending the link out to all these different support groups because he thinks it can help them. Then it can also help him. And it's just a very interesting case study. But then, of course, there's well-written, well-marketed novels. So I think this book I sent around, the other one was a portal. I don't know where that one went. Fairly good book. Actually, Peter and I have both been reading it, and pretty good sci-fi novels. I think, is the portal back there? Here's the portal. And you can tell also that, we were all taught that you shouldn't judge a book by your cover. Everybody totally judges the book by its cover, and this is a really good cover. He has a good spine. He's got, the back. That's how you get people to actually look at your book. And it's probably the hardest thing that, it's a thing that we tell everybody that most of them ignore. We actually did some surveys of our user base, and we asked people, hey, what would you be willing to pay for to make your book better and to market your book, right? What was interesting is 80% of them said, oh yeah, they'd pay $600 or more for marketing services. But only 20% said they would pay $250 to have it edited, which I thought was just really sad. So we're trying to figure out, well, how can we really, educate them about this without telling them that, we don't want to say, your book sucks, but the story's good. Maybe you can get an editor, So if anyone has any ideas afterwards, I'd love to hear them. And ultimately, that will be in their interest. So writing does definitely matter, and you'll get better sales for it and better reviews. And then there's this little secret in the book publishing industry that I've recently discovered, because I'm not from the industry, but the romance novels and beyond, very popular. One of the authors that I mentioned that we've been talking with, she regularly sells. It's what we, at a different age we would have called it, trashy romance novels. Now it's more acceptable, and I think what's happening is on eBooks, women can finally go and get content that they want to read that's of that nature, and it's discreet, and it's just taken off. So it's written by women for women, and it's all, you read it and it's not visual.
I keep thinking that this could be a resurgence of pulp fiction or the science fiction short stories. Do you have any collections of short stories, or do you have anyone editing those kinds of projects?
So we ourselves, as a publishing service with Book Brewer, we do not edit anything, but organize it. But we are seeing collections of those kind of stories, and also poetry collections. Not really seeing them get sold, though. So there's a difference between what we see a lot of and then what people are buying. Okay. So the most important thing, I think, to say about marketing is, going back to Amanda Hocking, don't just sit back and expect others to market your book for you. And I'd say probably 80% of the people using our services are doing that right now. And so we're starting to create tools for them that help them kind of just kickstart their marketing so they can then see the instant feedback. So one thing we do is once their book is available for sale anywhere, we make a profile page for it, and an email goes out to them and it says, hey, the next step should be, post this on Twitter or Facebook or send to your friends. It seems kind of obvious, but until we told them that, they never did it. And now we're starting to see it, and I think that it's going to be good for them. Press releases, I think, we notice that's a really great way to get your book noticed, whether it's by reviewers or by readers. So I noticed just last week an author who came in about a month ago sent a press release out because they copied us in the email, and they just did it themselves. They had their media list or whatever, and they included us on it too. And I actually noticed that the sales increased to like 50 copies in about 2 weeks, which was good for something that was just brand new. So 2 services you may want to look into for press releases that they're not book specific. I think there are a lot of different people out there who will do press releases for your book if you want someone who knows about the book industry. But Pitch Engine is a really neat service that I've only just started using myself recently, and it's almost like you're creating a social media profile for your story you're pitching. So you fill out all the different fields, and then you give it all your Facebook and Twitter accounts. By the way, you should definitely set up a Facebook page for your book and a Twitter account for your book, which I'm going to get into here. With Pitch Engine, if you have those, you put them in there with your username and password, and it just starts promoting automatically your press release through those engines, and then it gets discovered in other ways.
What does it cost?
Trying to remember, I think it was it's free to use for one story, and then if you want additional stories, I think you pay a monthly fee, and it's under $100, so it's pretty affordable, as I recall. I mentioned Goodreads and Shelfari. Obviously, you set up a blog. If you are looking for a really easy way to set up a blog, Tumblr, tumblr.com, is a really easy way to set up a blog, and the blogs and Tumblr seem to get discovered. I think they're really good with their search engine optimization. And then link all the sales URLs where people can buy your book from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Borders, blah, 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 into the blog, right? So I think what I've learned is that the books that are out there that have a person behind it who is out there talking about their story, if they're doing it on their blog, that seems to be a successful, it seems to work. And Amanda Hawking definitely did that, but there are a lot of others. Just looking at my dad sent me a story here. Who's the writer? Locke. Louisville businessman John Locke, who's selling 99-cent books, and he blogs about it and promotes it. And people want to know you. It's not just it is about the content, but they also want to know about you. And I think especially if it's self-published. Another obvious thing to do is you should like your own books on Facebook. So if you use a publishing service, whether it's us or Smashwords or someone else, you usually have that page, and you can just push a button to say, I like this, and then it shows up for your friends. It's like the easiest thing you can do, and it really does make a difference. Because then they'll see it, and they'll like it, and it'll go to their friends, and why would you not want to do that? Okay, so now we're going to talk about creating your book. We're going to talk about, and I'm also going to show you, just barely, the hard way to do it, or the geeky way. Just so you understand what an ebook is, because a lot of people don't understand what the file is, and I think that there's some reasons to understand how that works. Self-serve tools, and I'm not just going to talk about ours, but there's some others out there you can use. And then we'll go over overview of major players. We'll then take a deep dive into Book Brewer, and then we'll talk a little bit about full service options, which is basically human beings who are out there who can take your ebook to the next level. And I can show you an example of somebody who did that. So here, in terms of the do-it-yourself world, there's really the four general ways to make and distribute your ebooks. One, you've got going direct to the retailers. So if you go to, I have on another page the URLs for these, but there's, Amazon has this direct, it used to be called direct publishing, now it's Kindle Direct Publishing Service. Barnes & Noble has something called Pubit. With Borders, is actually Borders Get Published, powered by Book Brewer, so we run that. And Apple and Google have their own services too. It's harder to get into them, but you can do it. You have to be approved. And usually to distribute directly that way, if you have your EPUB file, it's free. Okay, so there's a little bit of hassle, but you get that set up, and then you're going to get the direct royalty payment. You can see all the metrics. The successful authors that I know of who are self-publishing their books, in most cases, they have their own accounts in these services, and they check the metrics and sales data every day, and they make changes to the pricing, and that's a reason to just go direct. One problem, though, is that if you just upload your Word document to them, you never really get a full file back. They will take your document and transcode it. You also won't get to see exactly what it's going to look like in the e-reader. They'll show you kind of a proof, It would take you forever to go through every page, just right in your browser. But I can tell you that it's kind of a facsimile. It is not exact. So I think it's yet another reason to have your full file. So if you go direct and you have your full file, which is the pure do-it-yourself, then that's really I think the best combination. Now, some people don't really want to spend all that time working with these different systems, and it can be a little bit of a pain depending on the service. So our service and many others also will distribute the book for you, and they usually will then take a percentage of the post-retail sales. So what happens is we or Smashwords or someone like that get these one check for all of the books that we're distributing, and then we turn around and pass another percentage on to you. So if you look at something like Smashwords, they're taking 15% of what they receive from the retailers. They keep that and then pass the 85% back to you. Our revenue percentage used to be 25%, and we were brand new, and we honestly didn't know what we were doing in that space. We just thought, okay, well, let's start with this number. That ended up being a huge mistake. We've since totally switched our model where we only keep 5% of the royalties that we get from retailers. And through a special arrangement that we have with Borders for books that are sold there, we actually don't keep any of them because there's some other things that are going on there. So finally, then there's the fourth option is conversion shops. And this used to be the only way to get a good ebook. Now, I think it would be really foolish to go to a conversion shop for a basic ebook unless you just have a lot of money sitting around and you like to have other people do things for you. But what they can do is they can make your ebook look better than it does through a vanilla service. So you'll pay anywhere from $200 to $1,000 for that. And again, if you do it for enhancement versus just getting the full file, I think in some cases it's worth it. And actually, speaking of that, I'm going to pass around this book by Joseph Logan, who's a local author in Denver. He went through Book Genie, is a company we work with. Well, some of you may have seen this. It's the 7 steps to landing your first job. It's kind of hard to see here, but I wanted to show, let's see here. So I don't know if you can see this very well, but you can see there's more styling on this page than you normally see in an ebook. If you compare that to a Kindle, you have the first letter of the first paragraph is, it's increased. It just looks nice. And what's cool is that it even works with, you can increase the font and all that layout is preserved. You can even go so far as to, let's see here, is this it? You can have columns of flowing text. So I can kind of pass this around, but there are a lot of things you can do in an ebook, but it requires.
He said no one wrote that. I don't understand that. There's a conversion shop.
Oh, so this is. They give you the full file, so it's. They give you the full file back, so the royalty. You would kind of use this along with probably do it yourself direct to retailers. Yeah, probably should have said not applicable.
You said G-E-A-N-S?
Book Genie, G-E-N-I-E. That's an Indian company that we work with. And we have integrated services through our tools, and they do a really good job. They actually did that. What happened here was it's a newsletter, and somebody sent me this PDF and said, we want it to look exactly like this. Then I asked Book Genie, and then like a day later, for $60, they sent that back. And it's like, it's pretty good.
Labor's cheap, man.
Yeah.
They're in India?
They're in India, yeah.
How do you spell that?
G-E-N-I-E.
And they're the conversion shop.
They're one of many conversion shops.
So if you have graphics or any kind of stuff like that, how does that work with?
Yeah, if you have, so eBooks can support on pretty much every device. They can support images and text, okay? And the images can be JPEG, GIF, PNG, the standard. And so you can do that yourself, no problem. And we'll actually do that today.
Just do it as PDF file or something?
No, not as a PDF file. In fact, actually, that's a really good question. Don't ever start from a PDF when you're creating your ebook. The reason is because all kinds of fancy, of funky stuff that the layout software that people used puts in there. Like, I mean, a lot of, the justification, you'll see hyphens showing up in places you didn't expect. But I could tell you that that's also, if all you have is a PDF, because you may have, like my dad, he published a book 20 years ago, and that's pretty much what he had. Then you can send that to a conversion shop, and they will extract all of the text and get rid of that funky formatting. And they did that for the book that I'm passing around right here. So there are some reasons to, if you can't avoid starting from PDF, there are options. It's going to cost you more. But if you have the flat text file or Word document, you're always going to be better off.
So you said you send to a conversion shop and then direct to retailer, but is there another way? After conversion shop, you...
Yeah, well, okay, so I can tell you the book that I'm passing around here, he went through Book Brewer, and then we sent it to the conversion shop.
Right.
They sent it to us. We checked everything over, and then he decided he wanted us to distribute it for him to Apple iBooks because he didn't have his own account there. And the other advantage there is an advantage of going through someone else to distribute your book, which is that we promote the books that people distribute through us, so you get the advantage of the service's own social media and marketing. We use them as examples. We've got one author who, pretty soon here, she's going to have an ad with her book on it and her testimonial on every single title detail page in Borders.com because she used Borders to get published, and she had a really high-quality book. And I believe that other services do things like that. Amazon has, if you use Amazon CreateSpace, you can pay $60. Well, they say starting at $60. They're not very clear about the price. And they'll turn your printed book into an ebook. I think it's probably more in the hundreds that they end up charging you. But then they may also promote your book in certain ways. So you're kind of on their radar, right?
So if we went to you, then you would send it to a conversion shop if we wanted to?
Yeah, we can do that. And it's pretty low prices because we send them to this Indian company. The Indian company also reads the books, which I find fascinating because they'll send back comments on the actual content. like that was really interesting. We're like, we don't have time for that, but I'm glad you enjoyed the book. Okay, so we have to move on here, or we'll run out of time. But so the hard way, okay. So basically, if you look at an ebook, and this is the only time we're gonna really geek out. Let's see here. Okay. So you probably can't see it, but on my desktop I have, so this is an EPUB file for actually, so you can see that it has the chapters along the left. This is the way Adobe does it. Pretty simple book. If you actually look at what the file is, this is going to scare some of you, but you can handle it. Here's a little trick. If you have an EPUB file, if you take the .epub at the end and change that to zip, you unzip the file. It's a zipped file. And what you get is a folder that looks like this. Okay? And probably hard to see this, but basically every chapter is its own XHTML file, which is a form of HTML. If we then look at that in a text editor, those of you who are into web publishing, this will look really familiar to you. You've got head, body, div tags, paragraph marks. Really simple, right? So if you wanted to create your own EPUB file, either by hand or maybe you have the content in a database and you can export it as XML, then you can turn it into an EPUB file fairly easily. And this is basically what Book Brewer does. You'll get a pretty generic looking file, which is what we have, what I brought up there. I also want to point out there's an images directory here, okay? So all the images are just JPEG files inside that folder. Some of you were asking me during the break about enhanced eBooks and like putting video and audio and this and that. And the good news is the ePub standard, which is an open standard just like HTML is for the web, already supports the addition of video and audio. And I don't want to kind of oversimplify what it takes to do this, but if you have your video in the right format, which is actually kind of tricky, And you then, if you were doing this by hand, you put a video folder in here and plop the video in there, and then pointed to it from the right page in your XML, then you would have something that looks like, where's the iPad at? Yeah. You have what's called an enhanced ebook. And there's only one that we've even attempted to create so far. But this is pretty much it, and it's very simple. There's hardly even any text in it. I just said, this is a video test. But there are 2 videos embedded in here. And if I play them, then I can view it full screen. I don't have to be connected to the internet to see that, or to use it. That's the real advantage. So imagine that you have a book and you have some video. Like here, this is someone who's talking about, Chef Chloe. Okay, so it's a food book. Then you could have an enhanced version of your ebook where you're talking about, showing people how to create the. Are you the recipe author? This one, or you have a recipe
and most
book?
importantly, it's so delicious.
But yeah. So
Let's get started
that might be
on
something that
basics.
you could think about doing in your ebook.
How much more expensive is that?
Well, even before you get into that, you mean to create it or to buy it? Apple's the only, well, let's talk about the buying first. Apple's the only one right now, the only app, or including e-readers too, that will display videos and, videos, audio, and PDF files. You can embed an entire PDF into it. Furthermore, they don't allow you to sell a video only, like an enhanced ebook, unless you have a standard version, because they bundle them. I don't know why they do that. Maybe they won't do that long term. But, and that then affects the selling price too, because they bundle the price. In terms of what it takes to create that, I can tell you, right now our tools, and there are no tools out there that will let you embed a video directly. But it's something that we're working on within Book Brewer, and I think within the next 3 months we'll probably have the ability to do that. Especially if you have a blog and we pull the video feeds over, or the video files, then we could do that. But there's also some work you have to do on the files themselves, the video files. You have to get them into some kind of H.264 format, I believe, and it has to be, there's like very specific settings where it won't work. But it is possible. Let's say though that you don't like the way that Apple requires these to be bundled. If you have your full video EPUB file, well, you can then make it available directly to your audience. And so you don't have to necessarily go through a company like that. So that's the geeky way. There's something called ePubCheck that's really important to use, which basically not every EPUB file is built the same. So if you go to this URL here, it's hard to see, but it's 3press.org. It's like, I think they're going to send the presentation around, so you'll have this URL in it afterwards. Is that right? No? Oh, okay, because you asked for a copy of the presentation.
In the video.
It'll be in the video, but if you put your email address on my on that list, we can make this information available to you. ePubCheck is just a downloadable tool. You take your EPUB file, you stick it in there, you push a button, and you get an output. And you want to look for no errors or warnings detected. If you see that, you're home free. If you see warnings and errors, don't even think of trying to distribute it anywhere because it'll get rejected. Or worse, it'll be accepted and it'll crash people's e-readers and apps, and they will hate your book. So there's another tool on the do-it-yourself side called Calibre, and this is good for when you have an EPUB or MobiPocket, which is the format Amazon uses, by the way, and you want to turn it into a different file type. So with our service, Book Brewer, we actually only ever create an EPUB file because Amazon will accept EPUB files and turn them into MobiPocket when you upload them. And the conversion works pretty well. But if you really wanted to have a MobiPocket yourself, you get this free Calibre tool, you open your EPUB in it, and then you just basically, kind of hard to see here, but there's a button up here. It says convert individually, select your book, and then it just creates the MobiPocket. So that's, you can do it, but it's not for everybody. So this is where services come in, and this is where my company is kind of in the space. So there are a number of different services you can use to convert your file and also distribute it. And I have this graph set up in terms of like level of service, how much you get and then what the price is. So definitely, some of you have mentioned, Lulu, actually CreateSpace should be up here too. It's a great service. You're going to pay at least $300 for anything, and they tend to focus primarily on print, with EPUB and eBooks as an afterthought. Blurb is another one, but it's really just for print, and it's more for like photo books and that kind of thing. They're not doing anything with eBooks at all. They've talked about having their own app and their own proprietary format in the future. If you look down at kind of the lower left, you've got Smashwords. That's actually free to use, but they will take 85%, they'll take 15% of the royalties they receive from retailers, so you're leaving more money on the table there. And then there are a number of free and somewhat buggy today tools, but I think they'll get better over time. Anthologize is one that's out there that works with WordPress. So if you have a WordPress blog, in theory you can install the Anthologize plugin, and then it'll turn your posts into an ebook. So it's an open source service. I don't think it's been maintained. So, then there's Book Brewer. It's my one little commercial. I mean, we have pretty, we will give you an ebook. We distribute it for you if you want to. We can turn your ebook into a print-on-demand title. And we give you 95% of all the royalties back. So you can see most of the money we're making is really here, and we're really focusing on volume. If there are other services that people need, then we basically match people with other service providers who specialize in things like EPUB formatting, and they can even do print layouts. And so we're very much of a service company.
You do marketing too?
Not yet, but we're going to be adding that in. We're basically building a service directory. So another thing I'll say is that if there's anybody who is, a few of you said that you provide certain services to authors. We're building a directory where you could kind of have your profile page, and we'd promote you, and it'd basically be ad space. So how does Book Brewer work? If you have documents, blogs, or photos, you use our tools, and then they're available pretty much in a format that works with every single app and store, or we will distribute them for you. So this is a really quick video. This shows how it works. So you start out, you upload cover art, you have content in a Word document, copy and paste it into a web form. It works very similar to a blogging engine, like WordPress. And in this case, I'm taking my blog feed. I can import all the posts, and they automatically show up, and I can edit them. And then I preview my ebook. So I know that was really fast. And in a little bit, we're going to actually create one. So if you have a document that is ready to go in Word, and you would like us to kind of use this as a demo, could you raise your hand? What's that?
Use my blog, but I have a question. If you have a cover designed by someone else, how does that? Do you just have it as a PDF and you insert it somewhere in your program there?
Yeah, so any JPEG image will work, and it can be any aspect ratio. But generally, if you make it book aspect ratio, it'll look good, and it has to be at least 3,000 pixels, 300 pixels wide, 3,000 pixels wide. For print, it has to be much higher resolution. You need to provide a different version.
So do you have graphic designers that you work with to do covers?
We do, yeah. Actually, one of my co-founders does really good covers. And so there's that, but we also work with absolutecovers.com. And there's other cover designers that we're kind of bringing into this directory program. In fact, the designer who did these two, she's now up in our directory. So remember we're 5 months old, so we focused first on our tools, and now we're kind of adding the services. We talked about this stuff, so I'm just going to jump over it. And what should we do next? We got 5 minutes here. All right, we'll talk about print on demand quickly, and then I think it'll. Do we have a break at 11? No. Okay, all right. So, well, before we get to the print on demand, I want to just say, so who has a Word document that's ready to go? Do you have a flash drive? Okay. So what I would suggest is put the document on the flash drive, and then after the break, we can then use your book as a first example, and we'll create it right here. And then we can also then, that's when we get into the Build a Book workshop. And anybody else who would like to do this, we can be doing one at a time on this laptop, but if you have your own laptops too, if you just kind of follow along what we're doing here, you can do it on Book Brewer for free. It's not going to cost you anything unless you want to pay us. Just want to be really clear about that. And on the back page of the flyer, we have a special deal that we're providing where if you wanted to do everything through us, which will include the print on demand, which I'll talk about in a second here, you'll save $20 off the top. So for $80, your book will be everywhere, including in print, and you'll have a URL that you can send that allows anybody to buy it. So that's basically just an offer that we're going to give out there. But there's no obligation to buy that. So I just wanted to make that clear. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about print on demand, and then I'm going to pass it on to Peter to kind of give you an overview of how printing technology has changed and what's really basically the cutting edge of these variable digital web presses, which he can explain better than I. Print on demand has been around for a few years now. There's some presses that have come out recently that are just pretty crazy, and they're right here in Denver. If you wanted to make your book available in print on demand through any service, in most cases you have to have a PDF file. With our solution, you can start from your own PDF that you create. It has to fit the right aspect ratios and margins, but you can also just tell us to use your EPUB file. So this is something that no one else is doing. And for the geeks out there in the audience, I can tell you, we're basically just taking XML, flowing it into a print layout, which is what they do at the printing press. And then that's how this book was created, pretty much most of them. We're actually working on improving the formatting, because as you'll notice when you look at this, it looks like an ebook in print. Well, that's because it is. We're going to be changing the fonts, adding some other kind of styles, but we've done about 16 of these so far. It's like so new that everyone who's using it, they know it's kind of a beta. This one, which I'll pass around, was created with an EPUB file. So it's Hollywoofs, The Tales of a Pampered Pooch. It's like a kid's chapter book, and it looks a little bit better. So we can kind of do it both ways. But you can also use a service like CreateSpace or Lulu, a Lightning source. I believe you can go directly to them. And it'll cost you anywhere from $60 to $600, depending on the service that you're using. Some services that we did a lot of research into this. We noticed some services require you to buy 10 to 20 books right up front for setup, and a few of them they say you need to have 100. So you want to factor that in if you're kind of shopping around. Don't just look at the base price. Look at, is there a minimum requirement of books you have to buy? With our solution and CreateSpace and a few others, there's no minimum requirement. The book gets sent to the printer, gets FedExed to you, you get to see it. They actually send you a PDF proof ahead of time. And then you or anybody else who orders from that URL, it gets printed on demand. And there's only one copy that gets printed, or there's 10 copies, or there's 1,000 copies. It all depends on how many orders someone places.
What's the turnaround time?
I'm going to let Peter talk about that in a second. Kind of already went over this.
What we use, CGX Publishing, which is a Denver company, or there's a Denver plant. It's a global company, but a Denver plant uses a press that is not more than a year old. And as a result of that, and this is the bottom line, we can print one book for about half the cost of what it used to be, and we can get it to you in 3 days because it's a faster press and it's a less expensive press, which shouldn't surprise anybody. That's the story of technology, right? You just improve, you get faster, you get cheaper, you get better, and that's what's happened. So all I am is this last part in Dan's company, which is the see it in print. And I'm going to talk about why this is possible, how this is possible, again, and tell you a little bit about our experience. Dan and I, as I said, have worked together for years, but we've only been doing this partnership for 4 weeks. So it's very new, but it's just taken off. And I'm going to tell you some of the problems. I would still say we're in beta, even though you can see these books we're printing are beautiful. We're still in beta, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the experience, which tells you a little bit about what you need to think about, because we've learned the hard way what other people have had to think about. Okay, so this is actually a picture of the press. Thank you very much, Dan, which I guess Dan took when he was there. Okay, it doesn't really show you how odd it is, but if I've been in printing, I've been in publishing for 30 years, and it doesn't look like any other press you've ever seen. Actually, this is a half moon right here. If you were looking at it from this side, you'd see it's a half moon. As you know, most offset presses are linear.
And it's what's the name of the press?
This is the HP T300. But since we bought this last May, since then there's been the HP T400, and Kodak has come out with the Kodak Next Press, which this goes again, I'm going to get technical, and I'm sorry, but it might help a few people. This goes at about 200 feet a minute, and the Kodak goes at 2,000 feet a minute. So the next jump has already occurred. There's only one of them in America. It happens to be in Washington, D.C., which is, again, our company. We are a company dedicated to digital printing. So these presses, they go really fast, and they can print every copy differently, formatted differently, looks differently. And so that's what, when you talk about CreateSpace, when you talk about Lulu, any of the companies you've talked about today, I can tell you all of their books are printed on presses that are 5 years old. So I don't have to go any further than that to tell you, you're going to get, that's what makes this price that Dan is offering possible. Because these presses are so much faster and so much less expensive. In
Just
fact,
one note on the price, 'cause I forgot to mention this before. The prices for the books, if somebody orders them, they range from $4 to $15, depending on the number of pages. Okay? What that then allows you to do is we let you mark it up. So let's say you have a book that's 50 pages. The actual cost for you or any of us to then buy it would be $4. But if you want to sell it for $12, then you're going to be making the difference between $4 and $12. And I think that's what this new technology, bottom line, that's what is really exciting, is that they can turn it around really quickly. It's, you don't have to worry about it. The URL's out there, no one can order it, and then you can profit from it. And that's completely your profit. We're not taking any percentage of that, and there's no such thing as royalties, in this equation. So
It's all profit, not royalties.
it's all profit for the author, which is really what we're trying to do.
The 40,
So-
is that the cost or is that the retail cost?
That's your cost.
That's the cost. So if you bought copies of your own book, you would buy them between 4 and 15, depending on the page count. For a 200-page book, it's around $6, right? And so, if it's more pages, it'll also obviously cost more. And we don't take any. I mean, that's what it costs, and then everything above that you choose to mark it up. The other people who order it, they're paying extra, and then we're sending that to you along with the ebook royalty checks. I'm not really aware of anyone who's doing it. I believe that was 5.
I forgot how many pages are in it's all measured page count.
You're going to have to explain how it
Okay.
works. I still don't understand.
It's 102 pages. It was $5. Okay, that's another part. Color makes no difference.
In the old days, it did.
In the old days, it made a big difference. In fact, because it sounds like maybe there's a little bit of understanding helps you remember. Okay, in the old days, every time you printed anything, all your cost was in the plates they went to the press. Once the press started up, it wasn't expensive at all, but the plates were very expensive, and that's why color was so expensive, is because for a color plate, you had to have 4 plates. And so that's why you can get 10,000 copies of a book at a cheap price, because all the cost was in the plates. Well, it's reversed now, and it's hard to get your arms around this idea, But now there's no cost to the plates, there's no setup charge. It's all in the ink and paper that goes in here, that's all it is. So now you can print one book very cheaply. Yes, in fact, and we don't go too far too fast, but basically, so what you've got today is you create an EPUB. The EPUB is immediately can go directly into the printing. And that's different too. Nobody else does that. Everybody else says, okay, if we're going to print it, give us a PDF. Lulu, CreateSpace, any of those. Give us something to print. No, we don't. You don't have to think about that. You start with Dan's EPUB and we go to print, which is what these are all about. These were just EPUBs that the author. We did the conversion, sent a PDF to the author approved it, and it's printed. Never works. Well, we've been through 3 versions of Holly Wolf's. It's a 100-page book, but every time she sees it, she goes, well, what I really want to do is this. So we now instituted, you can do that, but it costs $20 every time you want to change it.
But it's not, yeah.
Is there a different cost for black and color printing?
No, we allow you 20% of your pages can be colored. It's no difference in cost. If you go higher than that, you have to pay a little bit more.
Did you say 20%?
20%. In other words, 20 out of 100 pages can be color, and there's no cost. And I think the other thing that I need to cover is, the other thing that we've learned in the 4 weeks we've been doing this is a lot of EPUB, I mean, everybody has a cover for an EPUB, but you know what? They're little images and people don't put a lot of effort into it. And so when we started offering the authors printed versions, they immediately started saying, well, I want to change my cover. And so that's been an experience too. And I was talking to Mike, who's the designer. We have spent a lot of time now talking to authors about how to get what they want designed, because that's a thought. I mean, you really when you go from EPUB to print, people want to change the covers. It's like a penny a page beyond that. So you might spend another 30 cents if you wanted another 30 pages. These prices are phenomenal, and I was really going to talk about presses, because then it might really reinforce the idea of the paradigm shift that's occurred. But I don't think I'm going to get to it. Oh, I'm sorry. So the question is, if you want to print with sustainable inks and recyclable paper, can you do it? And the answer is yes.
Does that change the cost though? We don't.
We haven't gotten there yet, so we don't know what we would price it. But we're a huge printing operation, so we have all that available. So we would have to work that out. But it's plausible, and I'm sure we'll get to it.
There's a lot of see-through on these, so
Yeah, that's a very good point. What's your name, I'm sorry? Linda. Linda made a good point looking at this, and this is what we're going through right now. So it comes off the press, and we look at it and we say, there's a little too much see-through. You know how you can see through? So we're going to change the paper. It's not a problem. We'll change the paper. Eventually we'll get it so it doesn't look that way. Yeah, we're definitely, I'll get to you real quick. We're in process, and we're learning as we go. But basically right now the process is, if you approve your book for printing on a Friday, then, and for instance, this was approved on a Friday, by the next Tuesday, you've got it FedEx to you. Just a proof copy. And at that point, you go online, or any of and you use Dan's URL to send it to anybody who wants to buy it, any bookstore who wants to buy it, and they can order directly. And then we fulfill, in that sense. We ship. Well, we don't know. I mean, as I said, this press is not a year old. It's been worked on for years. I've got 2 minutes, and I'll give you the short version, because I don't want you to think it was just magic or accidental. It's been, this is inkjet printing, okay? It was invented in the 50s, all right? And it changed. You remember dot matrix printing when remember those printers? Okay. Well, then you went to inkjet, and it's a lot better, right? Okay. Now they've got them in this size. They go really, really fast. But basically, the technology is inkjet. Gutenberg was type, movable type. This is inkjet. It goes really, really fast. It's all electronic, It puts a dot that's so microscopic you can't even see it, and that's how it works. The presses that Lulu and CreateSpace and every other company you've talked about today uses are toner-based presses. Now, you remember toner in the home?
We can't get into that.
All right.
Just really quickly here, this to answer that last question, then I think we're done. This is the public profile page for one of the books that we did publish through us, Ode to the Perfect Wife. And you can see here all the places where you can buy it as an ebook, Orders, Amazon, Apple iBooks, Google Editions, and then paperback version. This is the order page for that. And so it's all fully integrated, and we give you this URL, and then it's people pay by credit card or PayPal account. That works in both the Orders Get Published site and bookbrewer.com. So I think we're done.
All right. Thank you.
Right to the video.